Have you found yourself wondering, is there something more? If so, then you, my friend, are a dreamer in waiting. I'd like to welcome you to the Dream On podcast. I'm Julia Gentry, and along with my husband, Travis Gentry, we discuss real, raw, and not small talk conversations about faith, family, entrepreneurship, and all the things that matter most in this life in order to help people bridge the gap between what they currently have and what they really want most. Join us as we give you insights, tools, and strategy to chase every dream that's on the inside of you. But be forewarned, this podcast is not for the faint of heart, but rather those of heart. This is the Dream On podcast.
All right, so here we are, episode 2. And we had some awesome plans. So if you're watching and if you're listening, you should come back and watch it because we're in a cave. Well, cave-like setting, and on the other side of the cave that we're looking at is this beautiful little like cliff and kind of rolling hills and mountains and trees, but it's raining. So we flipped the camera and now we're sitting under this covering. So here we are, episode 2, talking about rethinking.
Yes.
Different things that have happened in our lives that we are now rethinking.
And so here we are. We're
rethinking on how we do this podcast. The whole philosophy was like, hey, let's just go to new places, different places. Some of it has to do with what we're talking about. Some of it doesn't. And but it's this is actually the third time too. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
So we came out here once.
Twice.
Just wasn't feeling it. Second time.
3 times is the charm.
Yeah.
But that was also our goal. Like, we want this to be real, and we also want it to be done in a spirit of excellence. And I love how this works. Like, we had it completely set up, and then we had to reframe this thing. We had to rethink the positioning of even this camera.
And forgot the mic stand. So I am the mic stand. I'm holding it if you're watching. If not, I am holding it. So here we are. Here we go.
So, we really wanted to walk you through on this podcast our journey of rethinking, specifically because every part about being a dreamer, you'll start to realize that you have to think differently, right? And dreamers do think differently. And in order to have what you've never had, to go where you've never gone, to do what you've never done, you can't keep thinking what you've always thought. Like, you have to change your mind. You have to change your perspective. And so because so much of this podcast is going to be wrapped around the ability to do that, we thought that we would take an episode to share with you our journey to rethink and to share with you like these crazy moments, simple moments that really started us on our journey to rethink in many areas. So today we're going to be talking about food, career, money, our environment. I mean, these were pivotal times in our life that we started to rethink everything.
It allowed you the opportunity to rethink. Mm-hmm. So just like today or the last 2 times, it's been a challenge where certain things come up and it's like expanding our capacity and our mental muscle in new ways. And so we're doing that as we're doing the podcast, which is, I mean, we could have just wrapped it up and said, hey, it's raining. We'll come back and do it again. And here we are. Yeah. So we got to push through it. And
I think it's the first to say that, we've learned over the years, mindset matters. Your mindset matters. And I think that what could happen with that concept is that it gets so watered down because, especially in the personal development world, you can hear it so many times, right? Or even the Bible, it says renew your mind every single day. And you're like, yeah, I hear that, but I need to make money. I need to make a change fast. I need to, do the things. I need to check and see what my neighbor's doing. I need to And so what we do is we start striving, we start going, we start doing. But then we're starting to change the outside world, but we're not changing the inside world. And then we wonder why it's not working and why we feel stuck and why we're unclear.
Well, it's like I need to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
So energetically, if you don't feel a certain way, to act your way into a new way of thinking or thinking your way into a new way of acting, it's challenging because I don't feel like it today.
Yep.
Maybe tomorrow I'll feel like it or next week. And most often we never feel like it.
Totally.
100%.
Yeah, totally. Which is why, so as we share in this episode, our journey to rethink, just so you know, really more about us and how we've gotten to where we are and how we think the way that we think. But then in the next episode, we're also going to share with you how to start your own journey of rethinking, because we all have these pivotal moments, whether they're simple or profound, that we're given the opportunity, as Travis just said, to rethink, right? Like if we see them as that. Otherwise, it's like we could you just bulldoze right over it and nothing changes, and then wherever you go, there you are. So we will on the next episode also walk you through a journey of how do you rethink in any area of your life. But first we figured we'd share
some of our moments, and we will have a download for next time. So watch it, and then there'll be a download to help you kind of walk through the process of, asking yourself the right questions, or, some of the things. Like the first example I'll give you is when I was probably in, I don't know, 4th or 5th grade, and I grew up in a great neighborhood, went to a good school, but I would say that we didn't grow up like over and above. We grew up, it was tight. Special privileges was going to McDonald's on like a Tuesday because it was 99-cent Happy Meal, and it was amazing because I didn't think anything different at that time. And then you have an experience that kind of challenges, or you're like, oh wow, there is a new way or a different way to look at things. So this example, I went out to dinner with my friend and his parents, and we went to this like steak and lobster place, which I'd never been before. And we sat down, started ordering, and my friend ordered, I think it was steak and lobster, got a soda.
In the 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah, in the 4th and 5th grade. And I was almost like waiting to see his parents be like, no, you can't get that, or we can't afford that. You need to order off the kids menu, because this was the adult menu. This wasn't like the little kid menu. This was the big menu. And he ordered it, and so his parents didn't say anything, so I definitely jumped on and followed suit, and I think I ordered the same thing.
That's awesome. You're like, I'll have what he's having.
I don't know what he's having, but that sounds good. No, I mean, steak and lobster, it sounds great. So
totally.
We ordered it. They didn't say anything, and so it was almost like planting a seed.
Yes.
It's not necessarily like you have this pivotal shift and you know right away. It's almost like that experience has always been with me of like, wow, that's interesting. The way I grew up is different, not bad, not right or wrong, just different. And then you experience a different setting or situation. So then you're like, okay, now I have the opportunity to rethink, how do I want to live?
So let me ask you this. And so great analogy. So let's say that these moments are seeds, right? It's an opportunity for a new thought process to emerge, right? And if the seed, it's almost like in the Bible where it talks about if the seed falls among the thorns, or the seed falls among, the road, it'll just get trampled on, right? So let's say that this is a seed, obviously, that took root. So what was the seed? Like looking back, what was the thought process that has been growing ever since then that you saw in that moment?
Good question. I would say the biggest thing is that you can have what you want. You can have, which has been a challenge for me over the years, but it kind of planted the seed of like, you can have what you want. If you go out to a restaurant, most of the time, and tell me if you think about this for yourself, do you order off of the right side,
the price,
or the left side? Which is what you want? Or do you look down and you're like, oh, that sounds good. You immediately look to the right and then the price, and you're like, oh, you know what? I want the special, the chicken or whatever it is, not the steak, not the filet mignon, not the whatever, the most expensive, or especially when it's at market price.
Yes.
You're like, I have no idea how much that is. But do you go to a restaurant knowing like, here's kind of the range, the budget I'm going to stay in? Or you go to a restaurant saying, I'm going to get an appetizer. I'm going to get something to drink. I'm going to have my main course. I may have some dessert. Or the opposite. So that opened my eyes, because we growing up, didn't really go to the restaurants. And when we did, most of the time it was we were ordering off the kids menu, or we were splitting something. Once we got to a certain age, we'd go, but knowing that there's a limitation, because it was a special thing for us, which was awesome. It just opened the door for me to say, okay, as I grow up, I get the opportunity to choose.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. So I think if someone's listening right now, Or for me, because I grew up very similar where we didn't have any money, right? It could be really easy. And what I've heard you say is most people go, but we just can't afford that. So yeah, Travis, that might be nice for someone else who can afford that, right? They can afford the appetizer, the filet mignon. But here was what you've communicated as the mindset shift. And I've watched you do this, which is you take that scenario and you go, okay, we can't afford it based upon how I've grown up. And they somehow could. So it's not, oh, well, see, I just can't afford it anymore. It's now, how can I?
Yeah.
How can I afford the appetizer and the lobster and the market price? Not just, well, can't afford it anymore.
Can't afford it.
How can I?
Fast, hard line of
Correct.
No.
Yeah, because now you're just checking out, right? You're tapping out.
What do I need to do to be able to have what I want?
Correct. Huge.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that seed has always been in the back of my mind, and I think, we'll share. So give an example for you of what was.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I think mine was also stimulated from, being a kid. I grew up, my parents got divorced when I was 5, caught me out completely off guard. And it triggered a lot of stress in my body. And I didn't know that until, I was probably 28 years old, and I'll kind of fill in what the greatest turning point was for me. But so I was under a lot of stress. And so my way to cope with that of being caught off guard or like, oh, I can't control this, was to do everything the quote unquote right way. So I remember like picking out my outfit, 4 outfits before school the night before, right? I remember getting up to make sure that my lunch was ready, my hair was done, everything looked right. I got all the good grades. I said all the right things, but it was not out of choice. It was out of stress because I was afraid if I didn't.
And now looking back though, it was like self-induced stress because you weren't equipped or didn't understand
100%.
The emotions and feelings.
Totally. Because then my dad would say things to me like, I don't care what you do, just make sure you do it the right way. And so for me, that was like, oh shoot, that was so much.
So there's a right
pressure.
Or a wrong way.
Yes. Now he completely alluded to there's a right way and there's a wrong way. And now because I wanted to please my dad, lived in a lot of stress. And it wasn't until, when I was 28 years old and we started working on all the stuff that we teach now, right? Like, how do you take these limiting beliefs and create something that's bigger? How do you create a bigger vision for your life? Well, mine ended up being a world where we live free and we create uninhibitedly. I hated it, right? Like, I came up and I was in resistance to it. Like, there was this part of me that went, if this is true, then everything I've ever thought before is false. Right?
Why did you hate it?
I think there was that part of me, like this part, my head part hated it.
So the head to heart disconnect of like, I get it at the head level, but my heart, it's
the opposite. Almost my heart was like, yes.
Okay,
right? Like
but your head couldn't comprehend it.
But my head was like, no, that screws with everything we've done.
That's not how. Yeah. That goes against 100% against what my truth has become for myself.
Because my truth had become do it the right way. So even remember in business, I'd say, Travis, tell me what to do and I will do it. And you used to look at me like, that's not how you become an entrepreneur, Julia. Like, you got to figure it out. But I was so stressed and needing to do things the right way that all of a sudden, when that seed was planted of live free and create uninhibitedly, my heart went yes. I mean, everything in me said yes, but this whole logical part of me was like, crap, everything, that changes everything. Which I think is the hardest part of rethinking, right?
Opens up a whole new realm of then what you thought was true is not true.
It's not true.
So then what is true? What is the truth? Where is the truth? How do I find the truth? Because there's got to be a truth, but it's just not mine.
Totally. So that was a big game. And it really honestly took me probably 2 or 3 years before my head started unwinding from all of the false truth, right? All the limits. And my heart was able to wind up around the actual truth. Right? Like that we're all here to live free and to create whatever's on the inside of us. And I'm still a work in progress, but it took a couple of years before that seed, right? That experience, that new thought process really took hold.
You got to start, I mean, go back to it and, water it and, cultivate it and strengthen that muscle.
Yep.
To make it your new truth.
Totally.
Not just someone else's or what you saw.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part. That's when it's easiest to go back, is that when you haven't quite grabbed on to the next thing. And so it's just easier to go back to that familiar hell, right? Like easier to go back to, see, we can't afford it. Easier to go back to like do things the right way, Julia, because I knew that.
Yeah, totally.
So it's just easier to go back to that familiar place.
Auto trip back to your comfort zone.
Yes.
So you're like, so you see, this is just my life, or this happens to me. Yes. Almost, a victim of like, every time I get here, then this happens. Yep. Yes, but there's also certain things that you're probably not learning or haven't learned to push past that level in whatever area that you're trying to push past.
Yes.
You're going to get challenged on it, is basically what I'm saying. Yeah. There's no, like, once you figure it out and you're like, oh, yeah, then I'll just do this, and then it goes away.
And remember in the RV, when I started to try to work out, and I wanted muscle tone. I've always been a skinny girl. Can we just say to the sun right now? The sun is out, and now it's hot. Now it's like 100 degrees. So if, by the way, we start sweating profusely, it's because the rain has stopped, the sun has emerged, and it's really hot. But I remember being in the RV, and this was after we had Nixon, and I was probably 9 months after having him, and I really wanted to build muscle. And I told Travis this, because I was like, I'm gonna let him know at least this is the direction I'm going. I've always been skinny, but I want to be toned. I want to be fit. So I didn't ask his input. I didn't ask anyone else's advice. I just thought, I'm going to do what I've done, but just more of it. So I'm going to go and I'm going to run harder and longer. I'm going to get on the bike and the elliptical, right? Even my weight, I'm just going to do faster weights, right? So I'm going to still use
more reps.
More reps. That's what it was. Yeah, more reps. So I'm just going to do what I've always done, but I'm just going to do more of it. I didn't get any outside eyes. I didn't get any input. And I remember after months of doing this, I came into the RV. I was starting to be depleted and exhausted. And I came in venting. Remember this?
Mm-hmm.
And I was venting, which Travis, I think, knew at this point in time long enough that when I'm venting, I don't want input.
You're not looking for a solution. You're just looking to, like,
be right.
verbally throw up.
Yeah. And so I'm going on and on and on about my workouts and that it's not working and that I'm not gaining any muscle and that I'm just exhausted. And see, this doesn't work. See, this just doesn't work. It's just my DNA. It's my body type. All the excuses that I think are so fair that we just justify it. He doesn't look up, graciously says to me, well, are you lifting till failure? Am I lifting till failure? No. I was like, almost my ego and my pride, I remember in that moment.
I don't remember your reaction.
Because it was in my head. In my head, okay. I was like,
I said it, and it was like, okay, good talk.
I walked away going, like, mind blown, right? Like those moments that you're like, that changes everything, right? And so that's the concept of how you start to rethink is I have to lift till failure. I have to do one more push-up. I have to do this a different way. What got me skinny isn't going to get me toned, right? Like
or build a little muscle.
Yeah, like what
you have to have more resistance.
I have to have resistance. I have to lean into the pressure. I have to know that in order to go to a place I've never gone, to your point, in order to have anything I want, in order for me to create uninhibitedly, I'm going to have to do a few push-ups around this. I'm going to get triggered. There's going to be tension. It's going to piss me off.
Well, I know you say it, but I don't know if you got it from someone else, but the truth will piss you off before it sets you free.
Yes.
So it's understanding, like, if anything comes against you and challenges what you believe so deeply for a long time especially, and someone comes and says something different, your first instinct is to be defensive and argumentative because of the fact of like, no, this is my truth and I hold it. I love it. This is mine. I can't let it go. And so then when that happens, you have to defend it before you step away and you're like, oh yeah, maybe what I'm saying is not, it was true to me, but it's really not true, or there's another way to look at it.
So you just like, if we were preaching right now, I'd say amen.
You can.
But you know what I'm saying? It's almost like it's a really bad friend, but it's still a friend.
Yeah, you want to bring it with you.
You want to bring it with you because you're like, he's always been with me, right? He's the one that sits with me at night and goes, oh, Travis, you're right. You know, like the world will never align itself for you. You're right. You can never have what you want. And like it's a bad friend, but it's still a friend.
Totally. Well, that's what, most people that complain are around other complainers because it's nice and oh yeah, I totally get that and that happened to me too, and you feel good about it as opposed to being around someone else that says
challenges your thought process.
No, get off the couch and do something different or I mean it's.
So talk to me about I know that we had a major transition in just career, how we thought about work, money, job. Like I remember you were ahead of me in that by far, and I can remember your mindset shift, and when we got into real estate and we started making money, like, can you walk us through, because I know that was a pivotal time for you. Can you share that process?
Yeah, anything specific? Because I did talk about on the first episode what was a huge shift for me, and opened kind of that whole rethinking door. Was Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, on business, entrepreneur, self-employed, investor. And so having a job at the time, making really good money for my age, and then coming to the realization that I was miserable, and I was still limited too, because I was getting paid salary, but there wasn't, from my perspective at the time, there wasn't a whole lot else I could do. I could have, now knowing what I know, I potentially could have went to the owners and say, hey, look, what if I do this or increase the sales, or like come up with some way that if I can increase their bottom line, it increases my bottom line even more.
For sure.
Where I don't think that happens most of the time. You set that, whether it's a salary or hourly, that's all there is. Instead of looking at like, where is there opportunity where I can make more, but in order for me to make more, I need to increase the value and the bottom line to the business that I'm working for.
That was it, because remember you said that you started to realize in the first time that we made money, and I'll let you tell, but remember the first money that we made in real estate, the first big check that we got doing short sales, and you said, now I know that my freedom comes from the ability to make money.
Yeah, the understanding of like, how do I offer a service that, it's limitless.
It's limitless.
So I can scale this as big as I want. So so after
we had jumped into real estate.
And fumbled around for 6 months. There again, it was all looking back. It was much needed. Because if we would have just hit a grand slam or a home run right off the bat, I don't think we would have learned and set the foundation.
Totally.
So fumbling around, getting in debt, losing money.
Humble pie #, consciously incompetent.
And then we partnered with someone, took our skill sets. That's the other thing I learned too, is being an entrepreneur is a team sport. It's not, you can't do it by yourself. And we're taught in school, you take tests by yourself. You have to do everything by yourself. Very limited where you're working with a group to accomplish a goal. There's certain, probably classes and stuff that you do that, but most often it's you and what you can do. Well, being an entrepreneur, I realized really quick, having the right partners and the right people so you can stay in your God-given talents and they do theirs, and you come together is amazing. And so, yes, after closing that first deal, which was almost what I made all year working for the company, it was like, blow your mind, like, okay, like this is legit.
This has my attention.
It didn't happen overnight. Had to put in the work, and then it took a while to close the deal. But then it's like, okay, with what we have, we can scale this, which we did, and do this multiple times a month or a couple times a week. And so that was a huge shift of like, okay, I am in control now. And so if I don't have money or if I do have money, it's because of me. Like it has nothing to do with anybody else.
So now what started to demystify that, because I think what happened watching you so if I could be on the outside watching you learn this lesson, is I thought that I would be free if I had more money, right? Which is why we started making more, and I didn't feel more free. And in fact, I didn't even act more free, which is why we were spending more than we were making, right? Like we ended up again back in debt and in my mom's basement. We talked about that already. But I started to watch you, and I remember when you started to say words like, freedom doesn't come, like money doesn't bring more freedom. It's the ability to know how to make money that brings freedom. It's the one that I now know. Do I want to stay in this business and grow it? Right? Do I want to be a contributor? Do I want to add to the bottom line? Do I want to be in real estate? Like knowing that now my freedom only comes from my ability to make money. Now all of a sudden it's like I'm not attached to money. Now we were no longer attached to money. We were free to choose how to make money, which is what got us free.
And or solve a problem.
Correct.
I mean, it's really at the end of the day, you have to solve a problem, and solving enough problems and scaling it, or the bigger problem that you solve is in direct correlation to monetarily how much you make.
So good.
So you can't, be an employee at a fast food chain and expect to get what a brain surgeon gets.
Yeah. Why? Let's just talk through that. Why? I know that sounds like a silly question, but why?
Because the problem that you're solving is, welcome to this restaurant. How can I serve you?
Yep.
Do you want a large fry and drink with that?
Medium or small?
Yeah, medium or small. Anything else, ketchup, mustard, that's what you're doing.
Yep.
So it's solving a very little problem relative to someone that's a brain surgeon that is solving a major problem.
Fair.
Time, effort, and energy that had to go into that to be able to be a brain surgeon obviously is exponentially higher.
Yeah.
But no matter what you want, you can have, especially nowadays, you can see how someone else has done it. So if it's in real estate, if it's in, investing, the stock market, YouTube channels, like there's someone that's already done it.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding. You may have to put in, if you want to be a doctor or attorney, you have to put in the years to go through the process, the system that they have in place to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But as far as an entrepreneur, like you can expedite your time so quick right now because of YouTube and because of the internet and mentors.
Yeah.
Finding someone that's already gone before you is huge.
But I think that so again, this has been a huge game changer because of that rethink, right? The seed that's planted that says, now my freedom comes because I consciously choose. My freedom doesn't come from just more money. My freedom doesn't come because I get all the answers right. My freedom comes because I choose and I choose consciously, right? And I think that that's the whole point here.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's really good.
It's really good.
And it even helps you, like, as we go through, and now we're in this crazy time right now, and there's people that are really hurting financially, and there's people that are absolutely crushing it.
Yeah.
And everywhere in between.
And, I think that this is so let's just go down this bunny trail for a second, because prior to COVID happening, I was doing some research, and it said that 70% of people were actively disengaged with their life and their career, meaning like somewhere between it's fine to like I didn't subscribe to this life or this career. 70% of people, which in theory, if 3 million people now are unemployed, 3 million people, let's say 70% of 3 million people.
Way more than that.
Okay. Forgive me, whatever the stat is, it's
more.
a lot. It's a lot. But last I heard, it was 3 million people. 70% of those people just were given the opportunity to find something different that they do like, right? That they could actually now go, man, I didn't even like my job before.
Yeah.
I wasn't even engaged with my life. I wasn't jiving with the people I'm around. I don't even like the environment I live in.
Yeah.
I don't even feel healthy. And then boom, something like this hits. And if we're not careful, we could easily fall prey to the mindset that says, this is happening to me. Oh no, I lost my job. I'm not going to be able to survive. There's not enough. I can't have what I want. Or they could take a mindset of exactly what we're talking about and going, wait, what if now's my chance?
Well, there again, what we've been talking about, it's like a forced reset though.
Yes.
And if you're not mentally ready for it or wanting it, it just pisses you off and you revert back to your comfort zone, whether that's blame or, victim mentality. And so it's hard, especially in that situation. I had the same thing happen to me in 2007 when they cut my pay in half, but I was mentally already strengthening that muscle to prepare of like, we're going to go, but I'm still addicted to the paycheck. And so we'll go when we have X amount saved up and in 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, that came way faster. So it was easy to make that decision of like, no, I'm going to actually put in my 2 week now because I was already mentally preparing for it.
So what do you do with forced reset? Okay, so let me share mine. Let me share one of my greatest moments.
And then some of it, I don't want to get too in the weeds because that's what we're going to help with on the next podcast and go in the weeds of like how you a little bit more like tangible things that you could actually say, okay, whether it's forced reset or practicing new habits to prepare yourself for a reset.
Yeah. So let me just give a little bit of insight on another one for me was in the RV travels. We talked about a little bit about this before, but when our Jeep got totaled, I remember thinking, first of all, when we came around the corner and I looked at you, the Jeep's up on the side of the curb, right? And you can see pieces. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this Jeep resembled, yes, I mean, it was about the Jeep. You don't want to be total, but this Jeep to me resembled everything that Trav had wanted. We had put this on our vision board years ago, right? We had the family, we had the RV, we had a Jeep, and we had really obtained a lot of the things that were important to us. And so for me, this Jeep was like the manifestation of like, I can have what I want. I believe that if it's in me, it's possible, and I can have what I want.
And now someone just came in
and now
ran
someone
into
just
it.
came in and told us. So immediately I went to this place that said, this is happening to us. Like, what did we do wrong, right? My wrong triggers. What did we do wrong? And this is happening to us. And we had a plan, and we're supposed to leave in a couple of days. And we had this all already, like, this is supposed to happen, right? We do this. Q2 was supposed to look like this, and I was supposed to be making X amount of money. And we were supposed to, right? Like, we're playing God. So I start playing God, and I remember you turning around going, well, this is happening for us. It's happening for us. And I looked at you and was like, what did he just say?
And I have to say, I got that from Tony Robbins. Life happens for you, not to you. So, and that's not the first time we got to practice that.
Yeah.
There was another instance when we were doing the fifth wheel travels. The first time that within the first week, the engine blew and we got stalled out in Tulsa for 3 weeks. And we'll probably do a YouTube video on some of the lessons that we learned through the RV travels.
Totally.
So, but it was kind of practice and making of like when that happened, absolutely.
It just came out of you.
Yeah, there's nothing. I had no,
It wasn't
I wasn't
forced.
mad. I was, walked up, made sure it was a teenager that hit the car, made sure that they were okay.
And I will be honest,
not knowing,
I was mad. I was like, this is what my first thought. Trav's being kind. I was like, in my head, were you not paying attention? Were you on your phone? The speed limit's only 30 miles an hour? Like you have to be looking down at your feet to hit the car. I mean, this is what was coming out of me.
On the side,
it was
of
like
the road.
not hard to not miss. Like, how do you? And so it was, I just remember him, and so for a minute I went, I'm going to have to go with this because my thought process isn't serving me. I feel angry. I'm now mad at this girl. I'm not going to be nice to the kids, and I'm going to ruin these next 3 weeks if I'm not careful. Like, I almost had this intuitive follow-up sense that went, I need to probably borrow Travis's thought, who he borrowed Tony Robbins, right? We're all borrowing better thought processes. But looking back, those next 3 weeks created a stimulus for me that took hold of that because we went to places we would have never gone. We saw, Horseshoe Bend, the Grand Canyon. We went to Zion
we didn't go
National
to Grand
Park.
But yeah, Zion, Horseshoe Bend. We definitely saw different things that we weren't intending to see.
It was amazing.
And it was cool. As you're talking about this, what happened was just people that came. Like I remember, and this is super small, the ice cream store, because we were parked right in front of an ice cream store, because I moved it a block in front of there, so it was like there again, it was like it was meant to be for some reason. But anyway, the ice cream store gave us free ice cream, and then a Jeep rental company came out and said, hey, I'll give you one of our really cool lifted Jeeps until you guys figure out what you guys need and where you're, what's going to happen with your Jeep. Not realizing, it took almost 3 weeks, I think. They were going to total it, they weren't going to total it. So just the kindness of what happened after that, it was cool to see, within a matter of seconds, our needs got met.
Totally.
We had a car because we had 3 kids, and so we had a car. We had some ice cream for the kids, so they were entertained. And then, I don't know, a week later, we got a minivan so we could travel around. But it wasn't ideal at the time. But if you kind of hold it, I think we talked about it in the first episode too, holding your hands out and open as opposed to like clenched and, being so angry about the Jeep getting ran into and how it could have ruined
and then this becomes
the week, the month.
It becomes a choice to go like this and be angry and clenched, or to open your hands and go,
just let it flow and let it be
and know that God's going to provide, which he did. And then we saw things that we couldn't have even dreamt up, right, or imagined. And now we were it felt like when you do stand in that flow state and things will just get into alignment. It will be what it needs to be. And that was just, I think that would serve even people right now is, what if things aren't happening to you? What if they really are happening for you? And yes, if you hold on and if you clench and no, you're still in control, right? You're still attached. There's no flow. But if you go, no, this is happening for me. And I'm repositioning my career, I'm repositioning my health, I'm repositioning where I could be living. Right? Like even people now that are moving from the big cities that are like, I don't even like living here, and they're going to some like quality of life states.
just more space.
Just
and
more space.
It's almost like, and we've talked about like where it's like the trapeze, where you go from one bar to the next. But if you clench your hands, you're never going to the next trapeze.
You're just gonna get exhausted.
You're going to swing back and forth until you realize like, okay, I got to let go to get something different to move me forward. That next leap may not be the thing.
Yeah.
It may be 2 or 3, 4 things down the way.
Yeah, but if you don't let go, you're ultimately going to wear out.
Swing back and forth.
Or fall to your...
Or fall, yeah. Get exhausted.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, so I think that those have been some really powerful ones. Any others that you can think of?
I don't know. We were talking about the RV.
Yeah, I mean, remember... I think that was the other thing with the RV when we started seeing so many different things.
That's right.
You know, like, okay, so let's also talk to the point of like, you know, habits and routines, and you start driving to the grocery store the same way, you know, or you start doing a lot of the same things, and you wake up 10 years, 20, 30 years later, and we hear people say all the time, like, this isn't what I envisioned for my life.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. Yeah, that was a huge thing for me. I grew up in a house, only 2 different houses, which is a blessing. And so...
You only moved twice. I think I really lived in
like
21 homes before I left my mom and dad.
Yeah.
Granted,
so there's...
you and I have moved...
there's like pros and cons to it, but that was like my truth.
Yeah.
So, or like my habit loop, my experience, what I saw. So you have social conditioning and environmental conditioning. So you have your family, what you see modeled relationally, financially, and then you see your environment. So I grew up in, you know, Parker, Colorado, and so I saw a lot of, you know, the same thing growing up as it grew, but a lot of it was the same thing. Conversations were real similar. People were real similar because you kind of adapt to your environment too. So even as it grew, it didn't like change dramatically. And so then jumping in the RV, actually it was the first time that was real eye-opening for me was moving to the Virgin Islands. So when I was like 22 or something, I moved down to the Virgin Islands for a few months, and being on an island is a totally different lifestyle, climate, weather, activities, culture is totally different. And then from there went up to Chicago, and we lived in Nashville and Milwaukee, and then coming back here, and then really what solidified, like really opened my eyes, was traveling in an RV. The first time we traveled in an RV was for about 3 months up to the East Coast, and all, you know, from Kentucky to Maine and all the little towns, Boston, and you get to see how people talk, the food, the culture, the beliefs when you drive around neighborhoods, from houses that are like don't have doors and they have sheets on them to mega mansions. And then,
which is interesting because even though I had moved so many times before, we were doing this at such a rapid pace. We were doing it Travis Gentry style. So we were seeing it so fast that you were going from different cultures, different environments, so fast that it was even more apparent that, whoa, this is a thing. Like energetically, certain cities, energetically, certain towns, certain attitudes, certain cultures. There were some towns that nobody looked at you. Then I remember going to Bend and people were waving at us, and we were like,
what did we do?
Why are you waving at me?
They're stopping for you when you walk across the street, and you're like
some cities you're like you're like that Frogger, right? Like, make sure that you know as a walker that cars don't look out for you, right? But in Bend, it was like everybody waves and acknowledges you. So even that, but it was so fast that I think we were able to see that, you know, like more intentionally.
So then, you know, family-wise, as we have 4 kids now, it's just what do we want for our kids? You know, we do want our kids to travel and experience. We do want a home base. But we get to choose that too. We're not the victim of, like, you know, through our travels. I remember running into people and they would say, well, you know, basically I've lived here my whole life, almost as like I have to. I have no choice. Like there's, you know, a wall around the state or their city that they can't leave.
Totally.
And so you confine yourself to that because it's comfortable. You've got your friends, your family. That's what you're used to. Going to a new area, not knowing anybody, can be super scary. Understandably so. And at the same time, what you get to see and experience and the people you get to meet. I mean, we have friends now all across the country, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I just look forward to even meeting like more people and culturally and the way they talk and the food that, we've got a au pair that lives with us. She's from Brazil. So culturally and the food and, they celebrate. Like when they do things, it's so cool to see.
It makes us
look way boring.
We went to, this was a birthday party. It was Travis's grandma's birthday party. It was just a normal birthday, and I thought
it was a good birthday for how we do birthdays.
Yeah, like they played a video, they had it catered, they had like a little photo booth, right? Like the whole thing. And Jenny said to us, she says, "Is this the party?" And we were like, "Yeah, what do you mean?" And she's
good,
like,
right?
"Where's the dancing and the music and like it should be loud?" And we were
they dress up,
and then they do that every Sunday, and then they do like,
they're very family,
crazy.
Culturally celebrate. Bright colors, loud, fun music, dance music. And so just watching that, how do you take that into ours, and then do we want that? Is that who we are? It's not like every culture has something like, well, we're going to start doing that because we saw it. No, now we're looking at it from a totally different perspective. And Les Brown says it, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. So now we're taking ourselves out and saying, okay, from family, food, travel, money,
all of it,
faith, like what do we want our relationship to be with God and our Creator, and how do we want to now teach our kids, because whatever we do and show them,
they're gonna model,
good or bad. They're gonna model, or come up with their own truths based off of how we acted or what we did.
Well, and I think that reinforced that vision for me of like create uninhibitedly. It was like, I still sometimes will say to Travel, but is this the right way of doing this? Like, are we doing the right thing for our family? Are we doing the right thing for our finances? And I think it's that constant reminder for me of what the RV did is like, okay, reality is what reality is, but what do you imagine? Like now that we've seen this all, you get to create anything, right? Like your marriage is about creating. Your finances is about creating. Your relationship with your kids is about creating. Like, what do you want it to be? And I think that was a huge stimulus for me of like, okay, reality is what it is. Don't make it better. Don't make it worse. Just let it be what it is. And now what do you imagine? Right? Like, so I find that I've wired myself to, not all the time, but more often than before, which is if I get stuck or I start to blame something or this is happening to me, is to say, what do I imagine here? Okay, I get that I'm angry. I get that I'm pissed off. I get that this didn't happen in my control. I get that I feel stressed or anxious. But what do I imagine? Well, I imagine a better connection with Travis in this moment. I imagine playing with my kids, right?
Like truly playing.
Like truly playing. Like no limits. Like act like I'm 5 with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do I imagine? And then getting my butt to where my imagination is. Like that's the next step.
And there's glass ceilings, there's limitations, self-imposed limitations,
which we're going to talk about in the next episode, y'all. We're going to do that.
I do want to share a little bit about you had said kind of that big awakening for you and creating uninhibitedly. Mine, as far as like we've talked about it for years, but I can't have what I want because it's not fair.
Is your greatest limiting belief.
Because it's, if I get what I want, then someone loses out, or someone will be hurt by me getting what I want. And whether it's, financially, or whether it is me going and hiking a 14 or doing something that I love to do, someone else loses if I win. And so that's been a constant, financially. We've had successes and we've had failures, and it's you get to that kind of glass ceiling or comfort zone and you back down. You sabotage it, not consciously, subconsciously. You do things that bring you back down to a certain level, whether financially. So going from the step of making minimum wage when I first started working when I was 15, to then kind of working my way up a company ladder and making 70 grand, and then closing a deal in one day. It took a couple months to work on, and really it took 6 months and a year of mentally and changing and learning real estate, but then closing that deal and getting one check that's almost the exact same amount that I worked the whole year for.
Totally.
Now knowing I can duplicate this and grow this, it's scary. And I think real estate specifically, that's why a lot of people have a hard time with it. Because it's like, I can get paid, if you get $40,000 or $50,000 a year, you can make $40,000 or $50,000 in one project.
Totally.
So it's hard to like comprehend.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to dive deeper in and talk about. And, you know, it's a constant, we're going to different thresholds and levels for ourselves too. And
so this doesn't stop, right?
No, like this is like a constant.
You're just getting started.
And you know, I think it's just the joy of the journey, which sometimes it's not. You know, you get frustrated and you have to take a step back and be like, okay, I've reached my limit for today or this week and I need to back off. But
done
it's
as
like
many push-ups as I can do.
Yeah, if you can just hold it loosely in different ways and understand and give yourself grace.
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, that's why, again, we wanted to share our journey up until this point of all the greatest areas that we've had to rethink, right? From financially and in our career, to just our environment and the way that we wanted to do family, to, you know, just how we wanted to do our life moving forward. Really, because as we shift into another episode and teach you and show you insight and tools and some ways to actually begin your rethink journey, and then how to like leverage this process. I mean, like I've said before, dreamers think differently. They have to, because what we're doing is that we're creating something that's never been created, right? To be able to imagine something that you don't physically have, and getting yourself from where you are to where you want to be just requires a different thought process. So this is like a prerequisite for manifesting your dreams.
Yeah.
You have to.
Well, it's like I mean, you know, this microphone I'm holding to the camera that we're filming on, it was a vision.
Yeah.
And we call it a dream.
Yep.
That someone had to create that, and it's gotten better and better and better, and it's like it's all around us, and at some time in our life, most people put their dreams and just hang them up and kind of bury them and start to live just, you know, doing the same things, kind of the status quo, and they succumb to what we've seen, I've seen in different environments where they just kind of go and not try to push out, you know, physically, mentally, spiritually, and they just kind of go through the motions of life as opposed to like, no, I know I'm going to get healthier. And it's not these major things. Like traveling in an RV is probably not for everybody.
For sure. And we've even had a couple of friends that are like, legitimately not for me.
How do you do that? Blows my mind.
Our dream is not supposed to be your dream. And I will say, I am not for this whole concept of like dream big dreams. I don't want people to dream big dreams. I want them to dream real dreams.
Well, their dreams.
Yeah, real dreams.
Purpose.
If I'm dreaming a real dream, the byproduct is it's going to be a big dream, right? Because originally when we had that real dream in an RV, that felt big at the time, right? That felt big. It didn't feel attainable. It blew our minds, because how in the world, if it doesn't blow your mind, it's not a dream, right? Like if you want to be healthier but you've never been healthy, it's going to blow your mind. Right? If you want to be in a loving relationship but you've never had one or seen that modeled, it's going to blow your mind. Like same thing. Remember when I told you my mind went on fire that time that I heard and saw you say that, and it was like, it's supposed to blow your mind, but what we're wanting is real dreams, not big dreams for the sake of big. We want real dreams.
Well, yeah. And what we talk about too a lot is like the thoughts that you have and the desires that you have are for you. Those are God-given dreams, is what we would consider them, and they're meant for you to live out and pursue and go after. It's like, you know, how many times have we heard someone say, and we've done it in the past too, I know I have, where you have this like brilliant idea and a year or two later, guess what? Someone develops it, someone has it out, someone has it to market, and, you know, has done quite well with it. So the thoughts and the desires are downloaded to you. Do other people get them? Yeah, sometimes. But I think sometimes they're specifically for you that you're supposed to act on. They don't, like Julia said, they don't have to be like this huge thing and I'm going to sell everything and move across the world. No. But it's like the desires of your heart are meant to live out because you don't know who else is waiting for you to step into what you have.
Totally.
And they can't necessarily, you know, live out their full potential because you're not
living out yours.
You're afraid.
Totally. And I remember, you know, we had one of our dreamers say to us, I am aware enough to know that I'm stuck, but I'm not aware enough to know how to get unstuck. And so in this next episode, we are going to talk about those for the first step into understanding why you're stuck, right? Like, you have to know that. You have to know the thought processes that are keeping you stuck. You have to understand the mindset that's keeping you stuck, because believe it or not, it's not your environment, it's not the stock market, it's not culture, it's not the things around you that are getting you stuck. We've met too many people and heard too many stories that people have overcome insane obstacles because they realized the obstacles weren't the thing. It was the mindset around it, right? It was the beliefs around it. And so join us in our next episode, that we are going to help you understand how to start rethinking in any or all areas of your life, so you too can start to chase after and clarify and manifest the dreams that are on the inside of you.
Yeah, and the last thing I would add to that is that it's not just about how-tos.
Correct.
Because there's a ton of how-tos out there.
Yep.
So it's a deeper level of understanding and awareness. That's part of it.
Yep.
Because you have to have, a new thought or something that sparks a new thought or an experience, but it's not just about the how-tos. So we're excited to share this journey with you, and join us next time.
See you then.
On behalf of both of us, thank you for listening to another episode of Dream On. Don't forget to visit our website, The Dream Factory & Co., for all the show notes and other tools and resources to get you unstuck, clear, and helping you reprogram your thoughts and beliefs so that you can live out your dreams with a community that supports and challenges you. Until next time, dream on.